Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas no Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas no Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas no Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas no Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas no Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas no Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas no Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas no Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas no Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas do Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas do Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas do Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas do Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas, nas plataformas do Instagram, Facebook, YouTube e no website samoramachel.org. Uma ação da Fundação Samora Machel nas comemorações do ciclo de vida de Samora Machel. A Fundação Samora Machel, o INCM e a Universidade Pedagógica de Moçambique convidam a participar na aula magna online do primeiro colóquio anual Samora Machel, a ser proferida pelo professor Patrick Lumumba, dia 16 de outubro, a partir das 11 horas.
dizer amor na terra regressiva, onde cada manhã é uma sombra mais e custa ainda mais dizer amor. Quando sentimos tenaz e saliente procurar uma casa em toda a gente e diluir sem raiva e em pudor, custa dizer amor na terra regressiva, onde a distância é feita de silêncios. Custa dizer amor nestes momentos em que a doença do ódio anda tão viva. Custa dizer amor, custa dizer amor nestes momentos em que a doença do ódio anda tão viva. Custa dizer amor, consciente do metal, que grama a grama integra uma granada, e custa ainda mais dizer amor às vidas esquecidas das machambas e que imoladas a tão antigas aras são penhores, avais, créditos e dívidas. Custa dizer amor porque é urgente dizê-lo em voz alta, sílabas abertas, reificar com ele solitas quimeras e com ele engravidar uma maré enchente. Custa dizer amor na terra regressiva, onde a distância é feita de silêncio. Custa dizer amor nestes momentos em que a doença do ódio anda tão viva. Custa dizer amor, custa dizer amor, custa dizer amor. Africa mino. Riturava na nava Africa mino. Mishoti yavana nava Africa mino. Mishoti yavana nava Africa mino. Ingati yavana nava Africa mino. Freedom, peace, freedom, freedom, peace, freedom. Tinena tatiko inga fela Africa. They feel in me better love. Freedom, peace, freedom, freedom, peace, freedom. Tinena tatiko inga fela Africa. They feel in me better love. Fly peace for you mama, for you mama, Africa. Fly peace for you mama. Oh, nili chaya nkulungwanita, chaya nkulungwanita te, chaya nkulungwanita. Ebo, wamani kuruma. Ebo, wamani kuruma. Ebo, Lumumba. Ebo, Lumumba. Ebo, Sizulu. Unikomba indu ungo ya kalekaya yosa seka kati shibeja nungodlaya. Unikomba indu ungo ya kalekaya yosa seka kati shibeja nungodlaya wena. Uyisa kwat uliworia masengani babo. Nyama yako na pela wenodlaya. Uyisa kwat uliworia masengani mama. Anyama yako na wena ofunza. Ushasha kwat ulianzisha tiko, lá vai a nossa madeira. O Xaxaquat, ulianzisha tiko, lá vai a nossa msasa. O Xaxaquat, ulianzisha tiko, lá vai a nossa umbila. O Tata Botman, imianzo ya tiko leli, lá vai a nossa garopa. O Xaxamat, ulianzisha tiko leli, lá vai a nossa garopa. Lá vai, lá vai.
Inicio a entrada do nosso Honorable Professor Patrick Lumumba. Podemos sentar? Mais uma vez, bom dia, e dizer que estamos num dia de festa. Estamos hoje aqui no Instituto Nacional de Comunicações de Moçambique para dar continuidade às comemorações da vida e obra do saudoso presidente Samora Machel. O primeiro colóquio anual, Samora Machel, é organizado pela Fundação Samora Machel, o Instituto Nacional de Comunicações de Moçambique e a Universidade Pedagógica. Tem patrocínio da Fundação Samora Machel, da Universidade Pedagógica, do Instituto.
The sponsorship of Eduardo Mondlane Pedagogical University, Graça Machel Trust, the Foundation for Community Development from Malcas Editores, TV Cable, Agostina Mahasha, and TV Cable. Before the presentation of today's agenda, I would like, with the permission of His Excellency, the President of the Chief Executive Officer from the National Institute of Communication of Mozambique, Dr. Tua Sufumotse, to introduce the Presidium. In the Presidium, on my right-hand side, we have Engineer Tua Sufumotse, the Chief Executive Officer.
A seguir temos
And next we
a
have
senhora doutora e ativista social,
doctor and social activist called Graça Machel.
a seguir temos
And next we have our honorable professor, lawyer and activist Patrick Lumumba.
e por último
And lastly, we have His Excellency, the Vice Rector of the Pedagogical University, José Castellano. So secondly, I'd like to welcome all the participants, those participating physically and online, and especially to the Honorable Professor Patrick Lumumba, who is going to undertake the annual lecture for Samora Machel Professor.
in his event. Observado o protocolo,
You observed all the protocol. I will now present the agenda for today.
tenho
So first and foremost, we have the arrival of the participants and the registry, and that has been done. We also had a cultural performance by Roberto Chitonzo, and now we are starting with the program where we're going to have the intervention of the family. We're going to have a lecture. We're going to have the thinkings, and lastly, we're going to have a group photo that is going to be followed by a finger lunch. Having presented the agenda for today, I'd like now to invite Mr. Samora Machel Jr. To intervene on behalf of the family.
Bom dia, senhoras e senhores.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, friends and family. So we are here today to celebrate, the 5th anniversary of the death of Samora Machel. We are here to talk about the life of the person that has marked the identity of this country, a person who has defined the freedom of this country, the identity of the Mozambican people. So we are here to dignify somebody who used to look at our eyes, who had a beautiful smile, telling people, I know you from here and there. And we all believed that Samora Machel knew all of us. 35 years later, as Samora Machel, we are going to start with this annual event to celebrate his death every year. So now we have invited Honorable Patrick Lumumba, a man who doesn't need a lot of introduction. He is trained in law. He is a law teacher. He teaches in a lot of universities in Africa, and he has been awarded by Commonwealth, and he is one of the men that drives us to remember who we are, who we were, and what we should be. Hoyo hoyo, Tangala Hosiahina. Welcome, everyone.
In the name of the Samora Machel
Minhas senhoras e meus senhores, em nome da família Samora Machel, eu gostaria de agradecer-vos hoje. Nós estamos bem honrados e agradecemos por estar aqui, que se juntam para além das fronteiras de Moçambique, África do Sul e ao restante do continente.
Samora Machel annual lecture.
Este é o colóquio inaugural de Samora Machel e nós iremos celebrar este filho do sul africano que tinha uma luz que não pode ser erradicada, um homem que cantava e caminhava criando a revolução, criando a identidade moçambicana. Ele deu a sua vida para a liberdade do povo deste continente. E nós precisamos de lembrar que no dia 19 de outubro de 1985, Samora Machel teve o seu último suspiro em Buzindo quando ela voltava de uma missão de paz. Nós estamos muito honrados em ter aqui o nosso professor Lumumba. Eu não acho que nós precisamos de mais apresentações. Tudo que eu posso dizer, professora, estamos muito honrados. Por favor, a palavra.
Let me start by thanking
iniciar por
the
agradecer
family of Samora Machel, represented here by Mama Graça Machel, Josina Malenga, and Samora Machel Jr. Let me also thank those who have organized the inaugural lecture which is designed to immortalize.
Foi concebido para imortalizar as ideias de grande filho de África, grande filho de Moçambique, grande ícone.
It is today 3 days shy of the 19th day of October, the year 1986, when Samora Machel was assassinated by the enemies of Mozambique, the enemies of the continent of Africa, and I dare say, the enemies of humanity. I remember so very vividly that in the year 1986, I had just graduated from law school. And I remember that on the 20th day of October in that year, it was a public holiday in the Republic of Kenya. And the proceedings of that holiday were interrupted by the then Kenyan head of state to inform Kenyans that Samora had been assassinated, that he had very suddenly had his life snuffed off in the manner that we all know. And there is a sense in which men such as Samora are not to be mourned. So we come here not to mourn Samora Machel, but to celebrate Samora Machel. The wisdom of old tells us that those whom God loves, he takes young and sometimes violently. It is that avenue that Samora Machel took 35 years ago from 3 days from now. And when I think of Samora and the manner in which he departed, it reminds me of the words of a great poet, James Russell Lowell, who famously said, "Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne, but that scaffold sways the future, and behind the dark shadows standeth God, watching over his own." And there is a sense, therefore, in which the scaffold that consumed Samora sways the future. I'm also reminded of this old saying that out of the caves comes out a cloud that consumes great men and inflicts great sorrow on us. But when it comes back, it cleans the pain. And it is in that sense that we are gathered here to commemorate the life of a great man and a great icon. Many of you who are from Mozambique and those who are from the rest of Africa will remember the words that so very often danced off the tongue of Samora, "a luta continua." And I remember that whenever he posed that question, it was rhetorical. He would ask, "A luta continua," but "a luta continua," the struggle continues for what? He posed. And he answered that question himself. The struggle continues against poverty. The struggle continues against hunger. The struggle continues against ignorance. Today, as we are gathered here today, perhaps Samora, looking at us from the heavens, is asking, how has the struggle continued here in Mozambique? How has the struggle continued in Africa? Because I remember him saying times without number, much more famously in 1975 in Dar es Salaam in the United Republic of Tanzania, that one of the greatest things that history will remember of us, that we had a struggle and we did not stop there. We made that struggle into a revolution. And that revolution had only one agenda: to demonstrate to the world and to the colonizer that we can take care of our affairs, that we can write our own history, that we can achieve the things that they had stopped us from achieving. Today, as we are assembled here, we want and must give a report to Samora wherever he is. Have we succeeded? And that is why, Samora, wherever you are, permit me to give you a report card on your continent. A continent that you loved, a continent that you served, a continent for whose peace and tranquility you paid the ultimate price. Your continent is still reeling from the effects of colonization. You fought against them with your comrades in arms. In your case, you fought against the Portuguese. Oh, Samora, I must tell you that the colonizer is still here. He is alive and well. He has acquired a new mask, and those who care to describe him can now describe him as a neo-colonizer, but he is still here. He still controls our economies. He still directs our affairs. It is true, Samora, that we became independent. It is true, and you are there. When you saw the flag of Mozambique fly, the flags are there. In 55 African countries, they are there. We have national anthems which we play every so often. The national anthems are there. We have visions of how we want to develop our countries. They are there. But Samora, we have made progress, but I dare tell you that the things you imagined would happen quickly have not happened as they were meant to. So Samora, what have we done in the health sector since you left? We have built many hostels. We have built many schools. We also farm our lands, and to a certain extent we feed ourselves. But I want to inform you that even as we do so, your comrades in arms, both in Mozambique and in other parts of the world, have in some ways betrayed your vision. They build for us schools, but they dare not take their children to those schools, Samora. They build hostels, but they dare not go to those hostels when they are sick, Samora. They don't. As we are gathered here today, Samora, there is a pandemic that has afflicted Africa as indeed it has afflicted the world. If you are watching us up there, apart from myself, everybody present in this room is wearing a mask. And those masks, we are wearing them to protect us from a pandemic called COVID. It is a new pandemic. It has affected our economies. But I dare tell you that we do not know how to treat it. Our ministers for health do not know how to treat it. Your mother Africa, independent although she is independent in a dependent way. We are now begging to be given vaccines. If it is not the Chinese that are giving us vaccines, it is the Americans. And if it is not the Americans, it is the British. And if it is not the British, it is the Russians. We are still begging, Samora. So the report in the health sector is not as beautiful as you thought it would be. In agriculture, we are still struggling to feed ourselves. We are feeding ourselves, but yet we still import food, Samora. So the revolution in the agrarian sector is not as complete as it ought to be. You will remember telling us that the function of the state is to ensure that it takes care of her people. Your African states are trying, but try as they must, we are not achieving what we desire. Whenever, Samora, we think that we have diagnosed the disease that afflicts us and we have found a new antidote, when we apply that antidote, a new wound appears. There is a sense in which something is happening to us, and that thing is the greed of many of our people in positions of leadership. The creed of many of our leaders in the continent of Africa is greed. They have given a new meaning to the old saying, "Thou shalt reap where thou hast not sown." They are in the business of stealing from their people on an industrial scale, Samora. You would be disappointed, but that is where we are. You remember that one of the things that you fought for, in fact, you remember the day when your mortal remains were taken away, the day when they snuffed life out of you, you are on a peace mission. But peace has also remained elusive in the continent of Africa, Samora. Let me give you a tour of your continent, which you are once so familiar, if only to remind you that peace is elusive in the continent of Africa. If you are standing here today, Samora, I know you would have said in Portuguese that what is in Africa is sem guerra, sem paz. No peace and no war. But there is real war in many parts of the continent of Africa. There is a sense in which even in your own Mozambique, for whose peace you fought, brother is rising against brother. And it's not only in Mozambique. In Somalia, brother is rising against brother, and the sisters are suffering. Not only in Somalia, in Ethiopia it is the same. In Sudan it is the same. In South Sudan it's the same. In the Democratic Republic of Congo it is the same. In Central African Republic it is the same. In Burkina Faso it is the same. In Mali it is the same. In Guinea it is the same. In the Cameroons it is the same. In Libya it is the same. In the Arab Democratic Republic of Sahrawi, it is the same. In the Casamance in Senegal, it is the same. Samora, that is the continent that you loved and you fought for. Today, if you had stood here, you would have reminded us of those words that you spoke and repeated so very many times. For the nation to thrive, the tribe must die. I understood you to be saying that the tribe must be celebrated so that the Shangane can celebrate their cultural activities. But I never understood you to mean that the tribe will define our politics. I never understood you to mean that the tribe will decide our economy. I never understood you to mean that when those in political office are called upon to choose men and women to serve their countries, that nepotism would be the guiding factor. I never understood you to mean that. But I can report to you, Samora, that in Africa today, the tribe is the defining factor. As some would say, it is not technical know-how that dictates most of Africa, but technical know-who. And know-who means, is it from my tribe? Is it from my clan, Samora? That is the Africa. But you know, you said many times, as you exhorted us, and many other times that you spoke about the struggle being intergenerational. You reminded us that it fell upon your laps, you of your generation, to liberate us from the clutches of neo-colonization and colonization. And you did it. Samora, I remember as a student of history, I remember being taught how your generation denied themselves all, how you denied yourselves comfort, how you left your homes, how days without number you are in the fields, suffering that there may be no more suffering, denying yourself food that there may be food, going through pain that there may be no pain. You are with your comrades, and I want to imagine, if I'm allowed a little fertility in my imagination, that as you sit up there, you are watching down upon us, and that you are with your comrades. I want to imagine that you are sitting up there with Eduardo Chivambo Mondlane, and that you are not only the two of you from Mozambique. I want to imagine that you are there with South Africa's Nelson Mandela. I want to imagine that you are with Nyerere of Tanzania, with Modibo of Mali, with Toure of Guinea, with Patrice Emery Lumumba of Congo, with Mangaliso Sobukwe of South Africa, with Neto of Angola. I want to imagine that you are there, recently joined by Kenneth David Kaunda of Zambia. Let me report to you that in the midst of the gloom, we are not giving up. In the midst of the gloom, I want to tell you that even in the face of adversity, your comrades in arms are not giving up. It is true, as I said when I was giving you the earlier report, is that the imperialist is alive and well. You remember, because you are a good student of history yourself, you remember reminding us that when the imperialists sat in Berlin in 1884 and 1885, and they divided Africa into little spheres of influence, they created Mozambique. They created all these other countries that their intention was never noble. Their intention was to ensure that the African continent would be exploited, her natural resources would be exploited. Samora, I want to report to you that the exploitation is continuing. I want to report to you that they still take our uranium and our diamonds for a song. They used to take it for mirrors. They now take it in exchange for little apartments bought for our leaders in Dubai. Those are the levels to which we have sunk. Samora, they don't stop there. You remember when you and your comrades in arms took political power in Mozambique. One of the things that you did was to say that we must Africanize. So a few things you said must be in the hands of the people. Agriculture, commerce, and other things. Samora, since you left not only in Mozambique but in the rest of Africa, in the name of privatization, those things are no longer in our hands. In other words, Samora, there is a sense in which we are puppets and our puppeteers are elsewhere. And I can see them. They control the thread sitting in Washington, D.C., in Lisbon, in Madrid, in Brussels. And I dare say, Samora, even China has now become a big power. When you are here, they were not as big as they are now. Today, you would be shocked, Samora, that even fish which you left in the shores of the Indian Ocean, which I never know why it's called Indian rather than African, that even the fish abounds there. But there is a sense in which we now import fish from China, Samora. Samora, you remember that one of the things that you are focused on was education. You will remember so very vividly, Samora, how single-handedly supported by your comrades in arms, you sent young men and women to go to Cuba and other parts of the world to acquire education. Samora, they are here, some of them doing good things, but there are areas in which they are not. We still cannot build our bridges, Samora. Samora, we still cannot make our vaccines. We cannot. There is a sense in which our success is only partial. But I want to remind you that even as the imperialists are doing their things, we must not allow ourselves to sink in the dungeons of sorrow and lamentation. Because we know that in spite of all these difficulties, we can never say die. Is it not you, Samora, who said, "A luta continua, vittorio è certa"? Is it not you who reminded us that the struggle continues and that victory is certain? It is those immortal words that keeps us going. It is those immortal words that are, in a manner of speaking, the lifeblood of our enthusiasm. It is in those words which, in a manner of speaking, are the mother's milk of what we desire. So, Samora, we have given you a report card. We have given you a report card which could dampen the spirit even of the most enthusiastic. But I want to give you another report of what is now happening in Africa in the midst of all these. You reminded us, not once, but times without number, that it was not going to be easy. And I remember in your younger days when I listened to you, when I read about you, when I read about your interactions with your fellow comrades in arms, when I read those engagements, when I listen to the speeches that you gave at the Organization of African Unity in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, when I listen to you, and I listen to you often, you are telling your comrades that it behooves us to remember that our struggle is not for the faint-hearted. So, Samora, we have, listening to your words and your comrades in arms, been moving across the continent of Africa and reminding ourselves that you did not die in vain. It cannot be that you died in vain. For how could you? How could you abandon us if you did not leave us words that would remain alive in the manner that they have remained alive? That is why we gather here today, 35 years ago, since your mortal remains were interred, since they snuffed life out of you, but little did they know that they only took you to another abode, and that the blood that you left has now created little Samoras, and there are many Samoras in the continent of Africa. There are many Samoras in the world who are now saying that Africa can and must change. So let me tell you what Africa is doing. Samora, the Organization of African Unity which you left is no longer called Organization of African Unity. They now call it, and we call it, the African Union. They met in Sirte in Libya and renamed it. And in Durban in South Africa in the year 2002, they launched it. The African Union now tells us, and we believe them to a certain extent, that Africa can no longer allow herself to be in the lower rungs of human civilization. That Africa can no longer allow ourselves to be under the table when the dinner is on the table. That Africa can no longer allow ourselves to be in an island of sorrow and desperation while the fish are to be found in the ocean. That Africans can no longer climb trees to look for fish. Oh, Africa has changed and Africa is thinking differently. And I dare tell you that that African Union that I was talking about now says that by the year 2063, Africa will be a world power. They are telling us that Africa will have eliminated hunger. You remember saying, a luta continua against hunger. Africa is saying that we shall fight hunger. That African Union is saying that we shall have peace and that peace must be fought for. That African Union is saying that we must fight against ignorance. That African Union now recognizes that the continent cannot grow if we do not give pride of place to our women who constitute 52% of the population. That Africa now recognizes that in as much as it takes the black and white of the piano to produce melodious music, so her men and women must act in unison for the sake of Africa and for Africa to grow. That African Union is now saying that we can no longer produce primary goods, we must add value. And Samora, since you left, there is something that has come about called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Samora, we now have mobile phones. They were in their embryonic stage when you left. Today, even as we talk here, Samora, I am talking here and I'm told by the technicians that courtesy of some technology, I can be heard in different parts of the world. African Union is saying that we are going to use this technology to change the continent, not only for this generation, but generations yet to be born. So Samora, your continent has made mistakes, but we are confirming to you that we shall not persist in our stupidity. Mistakes we shall make, but we shall learn from them, because you long told us that it is only the divine that do not make mistakes, but what we cannot afford the luxury of doing is to persist in our stupidity. Oh, Samora, when one thinks about the things that you thought about, and one talks about the mother continent, we can say many things, but the wisdom of the occasion also demands that we do not say many things. The wisdom of the occasion demands that we only remind you that we are happy that you lived, that we are happy that during your time on earth you made a contribution, that during your life on earth you bestrode Mozambique like the fabled Greek Colossus, and you did not stop there, that during your life you bestrode the continent of Africa, that during your life you touched lives, that during your life you changed minds, that during your life you introduce ideas which are immortal, that during your life you influence us, that during your life even those who did not meet you physically feel familiar with you, that during your life you introduce ideas that will never die, that during your life indeed you are a great man. Oh, Samora, what can we say? We can only say that you are great. We can only say that we are disciples of your ideas. We can only say that your greatness shall change our lives. Oh, Samora, today we come not to mourn you, but to celebrate you. And that is why we say with you and with those who are present here, long live Samora, for Samora never dies. A luta continua, Vittorio e seta. Obrigado.
Honorable Professor Patrick, thank you. No words to express our gratitude for the wonderful and insightful thoughts in this speech about Mozambique and about Samora. Muito obrigado, professor Patrick, por esta magnífica aula inaugural.
A wonderful lecture for the first annual lecture on Samora Machel. It's a very knowledgeable lecture that we remember always, where we looked at what Mozambique should be in the future. With no further ado, I would like to invite Mama Graça to address some remarks in regard to this celebration. Thank you.
Prof, I'm speechless. In fact, I think after you, all of us should simply absorb the message and not try even to make any comment. But I wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge my two daughters who are here, Olivia and Ornilla, and to acknowledge two sisters of mine who are the younger sisters of mine, married to Orlando Machel, and another one to eldest brother to Samora. So the Machel family here is much bigger than the four who were announced initially. Prof, you said it clear and loud. There are millions of Samoras across this continent. And in fact, Africans in the diaspora as well. While you were speaking, it occurred to me that this October is the month where giants have left. On 19th October, a year before Samora was assassinated, Maurice Bishop was assassinated in Barbados. And then in 1986? 19th October, it was Samora who was killed. And a year later, on the 15th October, is Thomas Sankara, who was killed. The three of them remain the Samoras, the Sankaras, and Maurice Bishops of our inspiration and of our strength to continue to say a luta continua, because their death was not in vain, as you quite rightly put it. Let me say to the millions of Samoras who are listening, who listen to you and are still out there, any generation has its own historic responsibility. So you young daughters and sons of Africa, I hope you'll be able to come back in 5, 10, 15 years and report to the call which was made by Professor Lumumba, to report how far you have gone to feed ourselves, how far you have gone to take control of our resources, how far you have gone to make sure that our health systems can treat us, and we can have our own medicines and pharmaceuticals. How far you have gone to make sure that our children, when they come out of schools, They have learned and they mastered the knowledge. I could go on and on. What I want to say is, we heard you, and young people have heard you, and they will come and report to you as eldest brother, who is going also to continue to inspire them so that they can believe that a luta continua and Vitória é certa. I think we are all galvanized. We are all inspired. We will take up in our own specific ways, we'll take up your message and we'll transform this message into action. Talvez eu deva dizer algumas palavras em português rapidamente. Comecei por reconhecer a presença das minhas filhas aqui e reconhecer também a presença das minhas duas irmãs. E, fundamentalmente, para dizer...
And mainly to also say that we have heard the message that Professor Lumumba has addressed, particularly for the millions of Samora in this continent. But there are also many others in diaspora. Therefore, I mentioned Maurice Bishus because there are so many Samoras out there that should lead the millions of Samora in this continent to transform everything that the professor has left us with. So here we are honored that, in fact, this inaugural lecture was a recommitment to the great ideals that drove the national freedom fight, and also to say that all the evils that we wanted to defeat are still alive. Therefore, the struggle continues and the victory is certain. I would like to thank the institutions that have embraced this initiative since the onset, namely the Pedagogic University. I would like to also thank the role that Professor George Ferrão plays in boosting what we are today announcing as the first lecture, but there are so many other lectures that are going to follow this. He was able to join together a lot of Mozambique universities, public and private universities, so that together they work from now on to allow that researchers, creators, artists can celebrate what we call as the life cycle of Samora Machel through the production of ideas, through production of perspectives that can effectively materialize what Professor Lumumba has left us with. So we started this movement, but we will be together in next October and in many other Octobers. We're going to have tens, hundreds of people, not only in the country, in the region, in the continent, that will be contributing to deepen the idea of Samola thought in this struggle that we continue with, saying that a luta continua and the victory is certain. I would like to thank the availability of the National Communication Institute for having given us the venue for this meeting. It is within the history. The launch was in this institution. I'd like to thank the CEO and also recognize the availability of the former CEO, Americo Mushanga, that enthusiastically embraced this initiative. and today his team is also working with a pedagogical university. I would like to also recognize and thank Alcance editors that produced the book that was recently launched and is available outside, which shows what is going to happen all the years. We are going to produce a lot of books on this topic, not only about Samora Machel, but we'll speak about the times of Samora Machel, speaking about so many other leaders that have been mentioned here, whose knowledge is going to be shared in these books for the future generation. I would like to thank the contribution of co-production, or the production team. It's a young team that has came up with high tech that we see here in order to help us producing this event since 29, and now we are on 16. I'm so happy because this is a young team that are the ones that we call the Samoras, the ones that the professor was talking about. And there are also other institutions such as Aguas de Namahasha. There is also FDC, Agrarian Machel Trust, that are also associates to this event. If I forget any other institution, please apologize for me. Apologize me in that. Now,
very small as token to offer to you. It is really just to make sure that you remember. You will remember that you were in Maputo, and you will remember that you are also now half Mozambican. And you will remember that as you were infusing the millions of Samoras, you yourself, you put in front to lead and to be part of that, to be part of that. So it's a very small token. It doesn't have a material value, but it has an emotional value of being the first. Is the first, but it will be forever. We thank you immensely, immensely for the honor you have granted us, and we hope you will be many other times back to be with us and to inspire us. Muito obrigado.
A round of applause once again. So, having reached to the end of the program, I would like once again to thank the Presidium and all the participants. We would like to thank all the Presidium and everyone for coming here to celebrate Samora Machel. The celebrations continue in the afternoon at 4 p.m. We will be in Pedagogic University, where we're going to continue with the celebration. We will continue with the presence of our Honorable Professor Patrick Lumumba. I would like now to request the protocol to indicate the Presidium where they're going to take the family photo. And after the family photo, we're going to have lunch. Thank you very much and good day.